Hello everybody, this is Torrance Davis with Davis Daily, and today we're going to be reviewing the Narwhal Frio X Ultra from Narwhal Robotics. You guys are probably familiar with these things, robot vacuums in general. You've seen them on TV and shopping malls and wherever on the internet. And it all started off with Roomba many years ago. They started the robot vac revolution, and since then a lot of things have changed and the technology has gotten really good. So we're going to talk about this Frio X Ultra. The older version of this was the Frio. They've added a lot of things. This is a mop and a vacuum cleaner, so it mops and it vacuums, and it has just a ton of technology in this that makes this one of the most technologically advanced robot vacs in the industry. So to start, we're going to look at the underbelly of this, and you can see it has the triangular mop heads. So being triangular, there's no gap here, so you're not going to have dry spots when it vacuums. And these mops have a downforce of 12 newtons. So depending on the type of floor, it can go all the way to 12 newtons. It could be less than that. If it's a tiled floor, it could be 8 newtons. Really depends on the floor type, and this thing's smart enough to know what kind of floor you're using, but you could also tell it what kind of floor it is. So the Narwhal uses hypersuction. So hypersuction means it can pick up 99% of the particles on the floor. As you know, with some of the older models like the Roomba, you'd let it run and you'd still find certain particles on the floor, maybe stuff that got stuck in the carpet or whatever because it wasn't strong enough to pick them up. Well, the Narwhal fixes that, and it has a suction power of 8,200 Pascal. And that's what they use to measure the suction power of these robot vacs. So 8,200 is the most you'll find in the industry. No other robot vac can do that. Now the brush itself is called a zero tangle brush. And if you've had a robot vac, you know that when you get long hairs from your pets, or maybe you have a daughter or wife that has long hair, whatever, and sometimes you see those hairs in the house and picks them up and they get tangled if there's a lot of them, and they stay in one spot. Well, the zero tangle brush sits at a 50-degree angle. And what happens is when it picks up long hair, it moves along the brush and it goes into the vacuum bag. So nothing ever gets tangled. And it's amazing. And it's a great thing to have, because there's nothing like having to flip this thing over and untangle hairs from it, especially if you have pets. If you have an Afghan hound or any long-haired animals, cats or whatever, that becomes an issue. So that's a great addition to this. So it's a very powerful vacuum. If you ever said to yourself, there's no way this little circular robot can vacuum as well as my Dyson or my my GE or whatever, yeah, these things do pretty well. So one of the other marvels of this thing is the self-contained dust processing system. So what this does is it has a bag, okay? Think if you collected a bunch of dust by hand, a bunch of dust balls by hand, and you put it into a plastic bag, and then you took that bag and you crumpled it up as small as you can get it to make more room in the bag. Well, that's what this does. And you can keep this bag in the unit for up to 7 weeks. And when the 7 weeks are up, you swap it out, you put another one in there, and then when you run out of bags, they do give you an actual regular dustbin. The regular dustbin is like any dustbin you'd find in a RoboVac. It's full plastic, fills up, you have to empty it, fills up, you have to empty it. But the dust bag, 7 weeks without having to change it, is pretty cool. So if you're like me and you've owned a Roomba or a model that didn't have object avoidance, where it just bumps into furniture and keeps turning until it finds its path, which can be annoying. I remember chasing my Roomba all over the house to make sure it went back to its base station. With the Frio X Ultra, it has a tri-laser object avoidance system. So it has sensors It has one sensor on the side, one sensor in the front, and then it has a sensor up top. With all those sensors, it can avoid anything. I've never seen, I mean, if it gets into a tight spot, it might bump into like a chair leg or something, and then it'll hit this, and it'll trigger it to turn. But I've literally thrown objects all around, and the rabbit's been jumping around while this thing's been going, and it completely avoided those objects. Tight corners, went around them and made sure that it cleaned all the spots around the objects that were on the floor. So the object avoidance is amazing. And it comes in handy, especially if you have kids, or you're away from home and you wanted to vacuum while you're at home and you don't know if your kid left their sneakers on the floor or whatever. So that comes in handy. So you have to wonder, how does it mop and do a carpet and not get the carpet all wet? What happens is when it goes from a hard floor to a carpet, the mop heads will raise up 12 millimeters to clear space so it can go on the carpet and vacuum and not get the carpet wet. So it'll lift them up, and then when it comes off of the carpet and it needs to hit the hard floor again for mopping, it'll lower them back down. So that's pretty cool. One of the other technological advances with these Narwhal units is the automatic dirt detection. I don't know how it does it, but when it mops, it'll do several passes. So it'll go out, it'll detect the dirt on the floor, but it also detects dirt on the mops. And it'll come back to the base station, wash the mops, and go back and do it again. So I saw it do the kitchen like it did 3 or 4 passes in the kitchen. It was amazing. So somehow it can sense the amount of dirt that it's picking up to determine when the job is actually complete. So that's pretty cool. So the app has a ton of different features. Once you pair it up with the app and you map out your home and you get your 3D and your 2D maps of your home, then you could start naming your rooms. So you can name your rooms and you can actually edit the rooms because they might need some editing. So you could split them up and configure them so they're near perfect, so it knows when it hits the kitchen versus the living room or the hallway versus the bathroom. So you don't want, for instance, you don't want to say, okay, go ahead and vacuum the hallway, but it goes into the bathroom because the mapping was off a little. So you could set it up so that if it goes to the bathroom door, it stops and turns around and continues just doing the hallway. So that's pretty cool. There's all kinds of configuration options in there. And it also, not unlike a printer, will tell you how many jobs it's done. It'll tell you when things need to get changed. It'll tell you if the bag is too full. It'll tell you, to change your detergent. And the base station actually talks. It talks to you. So you'll hear this woman's voice throughout your house when it's doing its jobs. It's pretty cool. And on the actual app, you can see the Narwhal coming out of the base station and moving along your house. So when you're not home, you can see where it is in your home because there's a little animated icon of the Narwhal moving through your house. So you know exactly where it is, and you know how much of the job it's gotten done. Because as it goes over the floor, it leaves a little path behind it. So once the unit goes back into the base station, you'll notice that it goes through these certain processes. And the way it works is it has 2 water tanks. It has a gray water tank and a clean water tank. And it empties water from the clean water tank through the system. It cleans the actual mop heads and then moves it into the dirty water system. And it also has a dispenser for the floor cleaner. It's truly amazing. Like I said, I've had a Roomba for a few years now. It was pretty cool, but it was kind of annoying. This thing right here is like having an R2 unit in your house. Not only is it super quiet, it's fast. So you can set different levels for things. You can make it have more suction power. You could set it up so that if it runs at night, it's even quieter. But I mean, it's just amazing how quiet this thing is and how proficient it is at getting the job done. and it just moves swiftly through your house. You know, if it's not vacuuming or mopping and it's heading back to the base station, boom, it goes. And it doesn't hit anything. It's just like having a real robot, a real R2 unit from Star Wars going through your house. And it just does such an efficient job. I did the ketchup mustard test. I put some ketchup and mustard on the kitchen floor, let it dry up a bit. It took about 4 passes to get the mustard up, but it did it. It did 4 or 5 passes in the kitchen and got all of it up, and the floor looks just spotless. It's amazing. And another thing, when I first mapped my house, I closed the bathroom door because I didn't want it to map the bathroom. I had left the bathroom door open, and I think when it cleaned up the hallway the other day, it noticed that there was another room, and the next time I ran it, it said, "New room found. Would you like to map it out?" So I said yes, and it went straight to the bathroom and mapped the bathroom out. I didn't trigger it. I didn't tell it what to do. So I was kind of shocked that it was able to do that. So yeah, if you open up a door and it's cleaning and it sees there's a room that it hasn't mapped up yet, it'll add that to its task. It's truly amazing. I can't wait to see what they do with this thing. If you want to feel like you're in the future, this is it. It's a badass vacuum, and I'm impressed with it. I'm really impressed. And I can't wait to see what else Narwhal Robotics comes out with.